So what I'm going to look at now is how to optimize images. So I'm just going to resize my screen a little bit here, and I want to open a file. So I'm going to go to File, maybe, Open, and I'm going to wait for the beach ball of death to quit spinning. Oh. And I'm going to go over to my drive, to my class, and I'm going to go grab the same image that we used in class. So if I come in here under optimize, I've got that bolts JPEG image. I'm going to open it up, and then right away I'm going to go up to file and save as, and I'm going to save this as Tractor 4 Web, and I'm going to save it in the same folder and leave everything at default. The next thing I really want to do is, if you look down here, this 6.89 megabytes and this 6.89 megabytes, this is the actual file. This is the file if it were flattened or compressed. So the first thing I want to do in order to get my file size down is I want to start by physically reducing the size. So the easiest way for me to do that is to come right up to image size, and I don't want to change the file size up, because if I make that file size up, I'm resampling up. Even if I do something like change the resolution, you can see the quality of the image at 100%. And if I actually come in at 300, you can see that it's actually making the image larger, but it's really distorting the quality. So you never really want to do that. You always want to stay at a resolution and downsample. But because we're going to the screen, it's not going to matter for what we're doing. And I've decided that I want to have my image, the widest point that I need it to be is 400 pixels. So I'm going to make sure that my constraint aspect ratio is selected on, meaning that it's clicked, so that it automatically resize my image. And you can see that my image was 6.89 megabytes. It's now 312 kilobytes. So I've dramatically dropped that file size down just by simply changing that. I'm going to actually come in and change my image size here. Let's make it 80% so it's big enough to see what's going on. I'm good. So I've got my image. I'm in good shape. I'm ready to go. Now what I want to do is compress it. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to go up to File, Save for Web. It used to be called Save for Web and Devices, and it's going to give me this image. And as a general rule of thumb, I always like to work with the 4 up preview. This first window is always going to show you the original image, and if you click inside the window, or for that matter any of them, all of them will move within that area to show you what's going on. So I'm going to stay with the original, and when I click on the original, you'll notice that nothing changes in this area. When I come over and I click on this one, you'll see that things have changed. Now this is set to be a JPEG, and I really want to kind of talk about the GIF first. So I'm going to go up to GIF 128 with a dither. And you can see that that actually is pretty close to that image. The quality of the image is pretty good. We can zoom in a little bit, and so we can look at it and see what the difference is. You can see there's a little deterioration there, but that's zoomed in at 300%. I'm going to come down here and click on this one, and I'm going to change this one to ping 24, and you can see that it's almost a mirror image of the actual original image. There's a little bit more artifacting around here, but not a lot. It's a pretty close representation. And then we're going to come over to the JPEG, and under the JPEG version, and I'm going to make that a JPEG high version. So you can see that this is actually kind of a little bit different. This is actually a better quality than that, but it's about a little less quality than that. You can see some artifacting around here, and it doesn't look so good. But look at the difference in file size. This is 200K, this is 62K, this is 57K. So if I were really going to do that, this would be my choice. It gives me the best quality image at the lowest actual resolution size. So it's giving me the file size. So it's giving me the best option. Okay, I just want to jump back over here to the GIF one for a minute. And I want to talk about what's going on here. You notice that when you go from the JPEG to the GIF or the PNG to the GIF, there's a lot more information. That's because GIF works on what's called index color, and it works on what's called the color lookup table, which is this table here. And when we're working with that color lookup table, GIF uses its compression by dropping colors, as that's how it really works. So if I come up to these colors and I start to drop those numbers down, you can see how the colors drop and the quality of the image deteriorates at the same point. Because what's happening is it's trying to use all of these colors to create all of these. And you can see we start get what the dithering, or if you will, what's called that little kind of boxy happening there. If I come in and I get rid of the dithering on it completely, you can see that it actually comes out and it starts to band. And what banding is when you've got that solid color. I'm going to keep going because I really want you to see how that banding ultimately ends up. And you can see that actually, even if I zoom out a little bit more and bring it down, you can see how even in the shadow, now it's a cool image and it's got some very, very interesting textures now, but look at how that shadow is there, and now it's just these bands of color. And that's what happens when you have no dithering. If we start to bring that dithering up, as we bring that dithering up, you can start to see more and more of that banding going away and more of where these colors are trying to create. But because we have so little color, there's not enough information there for it to fill it in. And as we start adding color again, you can see how it starts to fill in and that dithering kind of changes. The other thing I want to talk about the dithering, I'm going to bring it back down to 0 again so you can see it, is I can actually change how my dithering is handled. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit closer and bring it up here so you can see it in action. So I've got no dithering on. If I bring it all the way up to 90%, you can see what's happened now. It's using these colors that are available and putting them in little dots, if you will, next to each other to try and create the colors. And that is because we're using the diffusion pattern, which is the diffusion algorithm. In GIF, we have multiple ways of handling it. One is a pattern. And you can see what happens when we change that. It starts to create this kind of half-tone pattern, not only just in the banding area, but all over the image. Or we can use noise, where it's a random selection of information. And so by using noise, we can change that selection. I'm going to actually bring it back to diffusion. And I'm going to actually bring that all the way up to the top, and you can see how it's changed. And now I'm going to bring that image back up to, say, 128. I think I'm going to bring it up to 256. Okay, so the other thing I want to talk briefly about is when I look at this image, if there's a particular color that I want to make sure that I use, let's say this color, I want to make sure that that color is always there for me, I can click on a lock. And now you'll notice that when I've done that, it's actually taken that color and it's put a little lock on it. And what that means is that if I drop the colors down, no matter how far I drop those colors down, that color is never going to go away. Even when I go down to 2 colors, I'm going to get only 2 colors, that color and whatever color it tries to use to create it. So you can lock a particular color in place to make sure that you force that color to always appear, and it's a great way of making sure that things work out the way you want them to. All right, so fantastic. You can see that I've got it. I'm gonna bring it back up to 256. I'm going to leave it at selective. I've got a pretty good look. It looks pretty good. So this is an option for me to move. So I'm actually going to select the JPEG one and I'm going to come up over here. I'm going to move this to the side so you can see it. I want to go to Edit Output Settings, and then I actually want to choose background. I want to save it as an image, and I can save that color, any color that I want. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to leave it as the matte, and in this case the matte could be the eyedropper color. Well, in my case, the eyedropper color happens to be that black. So I'm actually going to grab the eyedropper and I'm going to pick that orange color from it. Now, when I go back to my other image here, and if I were to change the matte to the eyedropper color, now it's that color. And then now when I preview, it's going to launch my browser, and we have to wait a little while for that as it bounces up and down in my dock. I should have probably launched it first. But while I'm letting that launch, what I'm actually doing is exporting this GIF image using that matte color, and I'm actually not really exporting, but I'm previewing. And so now I can see what that GIF would look like against that color if that were the color of the page. So I can get a sense of what's going on. Pretty nifty, pretty handy. And then of course now I'm going to come in and I'm going to export that. Before I export that, I have this one other option. I could actually bring that image file size down. So if I wanted to make it 300 pixels, you can see that now what I've got is 300, so I got a 3:2 ratio. I'm going to save that, and I'm going to save this as Tractors Bolts for Web, and I'm going to save it into my files. Yep, here we go, in here, and I'm going to save it in here, Files for, and Optimize, and I'm going to save that for Web GIF, and there we go, and I've saved it. Awesome. Now I'm actually going to go back to my Save for Web, and I'm going to do the same thing, except this time I'm going to actually change this into the default ping. So I'm going to do default ping 24. I'm going to change its physical size, and I'm going to click Save. And so now I'm going to save the ping out there into the same directory. And there we go, I've saved the ping. And last but not least, I'm going to save it as our JPEG that we worked very hard at. So I'm going to bring that up a little bit higher. I think that's pretty good. Remember, I told you before, if we bring it down too far, let's see if I can get it down low enough and zoom in a little bit so you can see the artifacting. That's pretty good. You can see how that artifacting occurs. It starts to look really kind of raunchy. So we're going to zoom out a little bit more so we can see like maybe the bolt, and I'll zoom back in there. You can see how that is. Remember what I told you is we can actually add a little blur, and it's funny though, as I add some blur to it, you'll notice that it blurs the image, but it also lowers the actual file size, which is kind of neat. Now I don't want my image like that, but what I want to show you is how the blur works, and it actually helps the quality out. I'm actually going to bring that quality back up to in the 80s. I'd like to have that quality up in the 80s. Going to bring that blur up a little bit, and you can see that I've got it a good file size, and I'm going to save that image, and I'm going to save it in the same place. And there we go. Cancel. Got to save that image as another name. I'm going to call it done because I've got a name for it already. So I'm going to save it the same file, and bang, and it's done. So now I've exported those images in 3 different formats. And what's really important about that is as I click on the image, you can see that it gives me the information. You can see that this is the original, and it's a pretty big image. Here is the GIF. It's 49 kilobytes at 300 by 200. Here is the JPEG. And this is the original JPEG. It's 1.6. Here is the ping at 122 at 300 by 200. And here is the final JPEG that we really worked at, 61 kilobytes at 400 by 267. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go back, and I'm going to save this one more time with our JPEG format as we just saved it, and I'm going to make it 300, and then I'm going to actually save the image, and I'm going to call it done 300 so we know which one it is, and save it. And now when I look at that done 300 file, you'll notice that it is now 36 kilobytes at 300 by 200, and it's giving me the maximum optimization of my image. So You can choose to work with GIF, PNG, or JPEG. And as we said in the lecture, GIF is always going to be better for flat colors. So for things like any graphics, any solid graphics, that would be a great option to use a PNG. So when we talk about a graphic that's something like this, let me bring it in so you can see it, where it's flat and all the colors are flat. That would be a nice candidate for GIF. If I'm doing something like this, where I've got some transitions, some glows and whatnot, then that's something that I probably want to use PNG on. And if I'm using just photography, then I likely want to stay with JPEG. Remember that it's about visual, it's about looking at it, and that's why that 4-up and 2-up is so important. Now, once you've got it down to a point where you're really happy, you may want to, staying with the same JPEG, you may want to turn around and do 2-up so you can actually see that a little closer together and get a sense of what's going on. But that's up to you. That's all for now.